computer. Here we go. All right. So now we are recording. So, okay, so I have Alicia, and I've been talking to Alicia, and Vienne, did I say it? Vienne? Did I say that right? Vienne? Vienne, can you turn your mic on and say hello?
Hey, it's Vienne. But
Vienne?
I'm in your advanced class. I just thought it was at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard, so I'm going to come back.
You're in my advanced class?
The 320 Advanced Image Editing.
No, that's not my class.
Okay.
Are you sure that's my class?
I think this is intermediate image.
Intermediate?
Yeah, intermediate.
My class. That's my class. This is on now. This is it. You're here. You're right. You're here.
Oh, I see DES-104, so it threw me off.
Where do you say? Oh, this is DES-323 Intermediate Image Editing. That's what the class is. And I hope you're in it. And I don't think
I am.
Okay, I don't think I have another class. So I hope I don't, because if I don't, if I do, I'm in big trouble. I didn't think I did. All right, so now that I'm all confused and paranoid.
My bad.
Yeah, well, maybe everything's fine. All right, so we got Alicia here tonight, and Vienne, did you say?
Vienne,
Vienne. Okay, I'm going to have a hard time with this one, Vienne. So do me a favor, please. Don't get insulted. I have very hard time remembering things like names and numbers. That's always one of my big flaws. So I'll do the best I can with it. And I want to thank you for coming. I think it's always great when you have people in the class, because it gives me the opportunity to interact with the students, to find out a little bit about them and what they know about the work that we're working on. So I did speak to Alicia a minute ago. So Vienne, what do you know about the kind of work that, first of all, did you look over the course so far?
No, I haven't looked at it yet.
Okay, so basically what we're going to be doing here, we're going to be working on things that relate to the compositioning of photos, image compositioning. All right, so and it's Photoshop, obviously. So do you have any experience at all with other classes doing that kind of thing?
Yes, I do.
Okay, are you comfortable with Photoshop?
I can find my way around. I'm not 100% comfortable, but
okay. Well, the good thing is you're here, and what you can do being here is you can kind of watch what I do, and when you come across something that might be a little bit strange to you that I'm doing, or something a little bit unclear, you have the ability with the mic being on to say something to me right then and there, and I can address your situation. Alicia and I were just talking a few moments ago about, how I reply to students when they send emails to me or if they phone me. And what I was telling her is that, I usually reply to emails very quickly, and I use my own cell phone for my phone number. And whenever I send an email to you, my phone number is on the email. So if you need to call me, you can call me. And I generally will speak to you. The only time I might not speak to you is if I have to phone shut off. Might be one or two reasons I would do that. Would be probably because, maybe I've let the power run down, or perhaps because I'm in a meeting and I can't be interrupted. All right. But if you leave a message, I usually call back very quickly. So, I'm very responsive is what I'm trying to say. And I'm very interested in making sure that you guys get everything that you need to be successful here. Also, I also am in Blackboard, and I've put my hours into the announcements for Blackboard. Okay. So I just mentioned that to you. All right. All right. So this course builds on concepts covered in DES 104 image editing. So did both of you guys take 104 image editing? And if you did, how long ago abouts? You must have.
A year and a half ago for me.
Okay, so a year and a half ago. So that's a bit of a stretch. So it might be a little bit foggy in your mind. But that's okay, because I'm going to go through this. I got 2 nights every week. I got tomorrow night and tonight, and I try to go through things very comprehensively. I try to take my time. I do have a tendency of getting a little bit excited, and I tend to go very quickly when I start getting excited. So I got to try to keep myself in check so I move a little slower, because, you know, people can get confused if I go too fast. So if I start going too fast for you guys, let me know, okay? It's very important that you do that so that I can keep myself focused at a level that helps the best it can, all right? So what we're really going to be doing in here is we're going to be discussing things such as color management. Now, when they talk about color management in this particular context, we're not talking about every single thing that has to do with color management. What we're going to be talking about relating to color management is how to incorporate color into the projects that we're working on. I think Alicia said she looked at the assignments. You said you looked at the assignments, Alicia?
Yes.
Yeah, so week 2 assignment, there's several photos, and what they're asking you to do is to recolor part of the photos. Remember that?
I just looked at week 1 this time.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, anyway, that's what week 2 is talking about, recoloring photos. And when they talk about color management, that's what they're talking about, how we can take these images and incorporate modifications to color. So we're going to go over how to do that. Now, the one thing I want to say is we have 2 nights, 2 hours a night, twice a week for 4 weeks. We can't possibly learn every single thing there is to know about this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the essence. I'm going to give you what I believe is the core of everything. We're gonna talk about things that are most central to the topics that we're talking about here, such as mask making, photo editing, and features specific to the latest version of image editing programs, so that at the end you will be able to adjust and enhance images with proficiency. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of projects, and I'll probably show you a couple tonight. I'll probably show you a couple tomorrow night. I'll show you a couple next week. I pick projects that I have from the past that are professional projects that I did in reality for somebody to demonstrate the concepts that we're going through in this course, okay? And again, the reason I'm doing it is for 2 reasons, so that you can compare what I did in that real world situation to some of the things that we're doing in this course right here. And I also wanted to point out to you how knowing the things that we learn in this course will enable us to actually do projects like that when they come along. And I use the word when they come along. It's not even a question of if they come along. It's when they come along. Because the kind of things that we're going to be doing in here is very central to the sort of things you're going to encounter as a graphic designer. Okay? The most remote thing in my mind that we're going to be covering in this particular course is the first week, which is going to be us creating this animated GIF. Okay, and the only reason I say that is because I almost never have anybody come to me and ask me to create an animated GIF. But that being said, you still have to know how to do it, and you never know when somebody actually wants you to go in and create an animated GIF, and you can create a pretty darn good animated GIF in Photoshop if you know the process. So what we're going to be doing tonight and tomorrow night is we're going to be examining that process so that in the end, you guys can produce a little animated GIF that you could submit to me for a passing grade. Okay, so how am I doing so far?
Great.
Are you good? Everybody's happy?
Yep.
All right. And as I say, if there's any question, who else is here now? Gracie is here. Hi, Gracie. Say hello to us.
Hi, everybody.
How are you?
Good.
I'm really happy to see you guys showing up. I love it when I have people in my room. It makes things so much better. You're going to have to watch the beginning of the video to see what we've talked about so far. What I am going to do right now is, so I basically talked very briefly about the course description. I'm going to take a moment to run into the discussion. Okay, so I'm going to click on week 1 discussion, and I'm going to read a little bit from the discussion. Reasons for photo composites. All right, now, great title for this. And why I say that is because I have several pieces that I'm going to be showing you in just a few moments that demonstrate reasons for photo composites and how these photo composites were done by yours truly for a customer. And I will explain to you why I was made to do these photo composites, okay? So just bear with me for a few minutes and I'll get there. In a minute, I'm going to do this. Discuss appropriate techniques for creating photo composites. So I'm not going to go through all this, okay? You're going to read all this. But what I am going to do is I'm just going to go down here and I'm going to find the prompt so that I can discuss. So you understand you're going to read all this up here, right?
Yes.
All right. So it talks about Polygon Lasso tool, quick mask pen tool, channel pull, all these different techniques. There are certain ones that I use, certain ones I don't use. I don't generally do a channel pull. I do use the pen tool only when I need something extremely exacting. The quick mask I use, the Polygon Lasso I use all the time. In my opinion, the Polygon Lasso is the best tool to support your quick mask, okay? So I'm going to show you all this in the next weeks, you'll see. But they talk about these other things as well. All right, so you'll read about that. So after the selection is made, you can apply a layer mask. I'm going to show you that too. Finishing the composite part of the photo compositing process entails adjusting the color and lighting to ensure that each composited photo element blends with the background. Here, adjustment layers and blending modes will be used not only to ensure the element looks like they belong together, but also to create an overall mood or feeling for the piece. So what they're saying here basically is, at some point, you're going to be taking pictures that are totally different from one another, okay? You'll have maybe a picture in week 3. You'll have a picture of a horse, maybe, and you'll have a picture of a girl, the body of a girl or the body of a male. And they're two different pictures. And you're going to composite these pictures together to create a, what do they call those? A minotaur, right? You know what a minotaur is, half horse, half human. I think that's a minotaur. What do they call? Is that what it is?
I think it's a centaur.
Centaur. I was close. Minotaur is a bull. And I think I'm full of bull. How about that? All right. So anyway, the point is that those two pictures are separate pictures, and they probably have different lighting sources, and they probably have different temperatures, okay? So one of the things that you do when you composite images, you try to equalize the images so that the images appear to be more like they are naturally together from day one. Does that make sense what I'm saying to you?
Pretty much combining two pictures to be one.
Yeah, but the other side of it is that you're adjusting the color temperature, the colors, you're color balancing them. Like maybe one picture might have a blue hue to it and the other one might be warm with a red hue to it. So what you're going to do is you're going to adjust one or the other so that they look like they come from the same source. These are some of the things that we're going to do. And we can do that using adjustment layers and also blending modes. And again, I don't expect you to know all this right this second, but you will very soon. And am I in 1 here? This isn't 1, is it? Yeah, discussion 1. Okay, this is discussion 1. Okay. Yeah, so anyway, this is what we're going to be talking about. After your selection is made, you can apply the layer mask, finishing the composite, adjustment layers, blending modes. So the prompt, when you are employed in the graphic art industry, what might be a job you will be hired to do that would involve photo compositing. Okay, so I brought in 3 pieces, and I'm going to show you those 3 pieces. And the reason I'm showing you those 3 pieces is because the 3 pieces that I'm about to show you are actual jobs that I did that involve photo compositing, and I will give you a rationale for why I did them. All right? So here we go. I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to start off by going to Light Arctic PSD. All right, so here's what I have, and let me explain, let me put a little bit of context into this. This is a room setting for a company that does flooring and cabinetry. Okay? So in the case of this photo, this is one of the photos of one of their cabinets, one of the cabinet surfaces that was like maybe a couple of years old, all right? So what they had done is they had 28 different shots, that room settings. That's what this is, essentially. It's a room setting that was set up to show the different materials that they use on their cabinetry. Okay, so do you kind of get the context here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so what we're looking at here is a room setting, and the room setting has cabinetry surfacing, all this stuff here, this surfacing, that's the stuff that they created, say, 2 years ago. Now, they gave me these photos, and they said it cost a lot of money to get these photos done. So what they wanted to do is they had a whole new line of cabinetry, and what they wanted me to do is they wanted me to artificially apply the new surface to these cabinets. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Yeah, so they gave me a sample. Now let's see if I can find my sample here. I think my sample might be in here. Hold on. It's not in there. Okay. Anyway, the sample is not in there, but the sample is white. There is the sample. Do you see what I did? Look, I'll hide it. So do you see what I did? I literally went in and I built, and here you can see, there's the left group. There's a folder that has those panels in it right here. Okay. These here are the top panels right here. Look. See? And then here's the middle panels. There are all the middle panels. And then there's the island drawers. Okay? And the island end. Okay? So inside these folders, there are a series of individual layers. Oops, hold on. They're individual layers. Now there you see, there's those two. There's that one. That one. So you see what I'm doing, and I've got all these in individual groups. But each one of these individual little panels was made one at a time. And they're all a series of layers. So we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 different layers that I had to create just to make that cabinet change from that color to that color. Okay? So, do you understand what I'm doing so far?
Yes.
Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Does it look real? Not yet. And the reason it doesn't look real is because it lacks, if you take a look at this, it lacks the shadows. See how there's a natural shadowing that goes on in here?
Mm-hmm.
So after I created these cabinets, I had to go in here and I had to create all these different shadow layers so that as I apply these shadow layers, I end up with something like that, which looks pretty real. What do you think? Does that look fairly real?
Yes.
So what I'm trying to say to you is that right here is a very good example of the kind of thing that we're going to be doing in this course in a commercial or a real world situation. This was actually part of a series of 28 of these. I have one more that I'll show you, which is here. And this one here is my river rock, and here's my sample. So let me just quickly show you this. So right there, that's the sample material that they gave me. And in the case of the other one here, Light Arctic, I mean, this was basically white. So maybe the reason I don't have it in there is because they gave me a number for white to use, and I used that number, okay? That might be why the sample's not there. In this case, though, that is the actual sample of the material they want to replace on all those cabinets, okay? Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So now what I'm going to do is the same thing. If I open this up, you'll see, look, I got a whole bunch of layers here, okay? Whole bunch of layers. And when I show all these layers together, you see how I've replaced every one of those panels with that material right there. And it's the same process as I showed you before. You know, I did it in groups, okay? So here's my fridge group, Those are the pieces that I did for the fridge. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then there's the, where's the next one? The cabinet tops. There's the cabinet tops right there. And there's probably about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. And then there's the cabinet, left cabinet bottoms. See, over here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. And then there's this area here, center cabinets. All those center cabinets are in there. The upper piece is right there. And then I guess if I go a little further up here, that right there is my, whoop, it's all of it. That's not in the group. It's this guy here, and that guy there. Okay. So now that I have those panels there, again, see how flat it looks? It doesn't look particularly real, does it? Looks kind of flat. It looks kind of artificial. So my next step would be, and again, I'll go back down here and I'll show you that, see, there's all these shadows that go on in here. So my goal is to make it look something real. So I come in here and I added shadowing to the whole thing. And by adding shadowing to the whole thing, which again is just a series of layers that have the shadowing elements on it. So you see how I've shadowed that with a gradient? Here I've shadowed this with gradients. This thing is a gradient, okay? So now again, that's how I did this. And this is the kind of thing that what we're going to be working on in this course applies in the real world. Yeah, guys, got any questions about this or any comments?
No, not yet.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to close this one. I got one more I'm going to show you here. Save. Oh, I'm going to show you my Dodge. This is a picture of a Dodge that I got. Now, this was going to be used for a postcard for Lincoln Educational Services. And what I was supposed to do is I was supposed to make a really nice postcard out of this. And it is a picture from the New York City Car Show. All right, now I can't really use this picture from the New York City Car Show because obviously this background is pretty terrible. And I mean, it just isn't a very good picture to make a postcard out of. What do you think? I mean, look at this guy sitting back here. You know what I mean? Look at in the windshield here. You see what I'm saying? Not a particularly good image to be using for a postcard. Am I right? But the pictures, they hired a professional photographer for the day, and a professional photographer came in and took some pretty nice shots of these cars. So what I did was I started off by silhouetting the car. Now I want to show you first so that you can easily see this. I'm going to show the background. Okay, so I created a background which is just black in this particular case. And then what I did was I silhouetted the Dodge car right there. So there's the Dodge car. It's been silhouetted. Now I also put an inner shadow on it because if you see what happens, you see how it looks in the without the inner shadow? It doesn't look as real, does it? By adding the inner shadow to it, come on, you. Oh. There we go. Come on. Come back on. Inner shadow. There we go. There we go. Okay. By adding the inner shadow to it, it adds to the realism a little bit. Then the other thing I did was I put a shadow underneath the car, which you don't really see. But this one here, I created this, which is basically the front end of the car. What I did was I literally took the front end of the car and I sort of drew around the front end of the car. And then I flipped it upside down and I blurred it so that when you look at this thing, the car looks like it's reflecting off of a plastic or a glass surface. Now, the reason that shadow is there, let me show you the rest of this. There's the side of the car. So you got all these nice shadows going down here. It's actually, I shouldn't call it shadows. I should call it reflections. The car is reflecting. Now, the reason that the shadow's here is watch what happens when I hide the shadow. You see what happens? With the shadow, it adds a nice level of effect to it. So again, here's the situation where I've taken this particular image right here and I've created a very nice looking design which can be used for a card, a postcard, okay? I hope this helps. I hope this helps clarify a little bit where we're heading with this. And I also hope that it gives you some idea of, you know, where this applies. I mean, where we're going to be, what we're going to be doing, where this applies to us in terms of being graphic designers. All right. Any questions or any thoughts? You all good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. All right. So what I want to do then next is, so let's see here. Discussions, I think we're good with it. So no questions about what your discussion's going to be? No questions about that? You guys clear?
Yeah.
All right. So let's go back to home quick, and let me go down to the assignment one. Assignment one. Okay, and assignment one is the animated GIF. Now, before I get into talking about the assignment animated GIF, which we're going to be working on, I wanted to talk very briefly about masking techniques in Photoshop. The reason that I want to talk about masking techniques in Photoshop is because right off the bat, starting with this animated GIF, the very first thing that we start doing right out of the gate is working with the concept of masking. Now, there are a lot of different ways that you can approach masking, but there are basically two primary types of masks that we can create. And these masks are created so that we can hide portions of a layer and reveal portions of a layer. The one type of layer mask we have is essentially a layer mask. It's a resolution-dependent bitmap image that is edited with the painting or selection tool, okay? And I'll show you that in a moment. The other type of mask, which is one of the primary masks, so the first primary mask is the actual resolution-dependent bitmap type layer mask. The other layer mask is the vector mask. It's a resolution independent. It's created with the pen or the shape tool. So let me just quickly talk to you about resolution dependence and independence. Have any of you ever had an instructor talk to you about resolution dependence and independence and what they mean?
Not yet.
No, you never heard of either of those terms?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
Good.
Design, I think it was 3 classes ago or 3 months ago.
So you have some sense of what it is. Very good. That's great. All right. So in reality, there are two types of graphic design or graphic file formats that we use. There are bitmaps, and then there are things like EPSs, PNG, PDFs. There are vector and raster files. Okay, so a JPEG is a classic raster file. An EPS is a classic vector file. Adobe Photoshop file, when you're working in Adobe Photoshop, you're working classically in a bitmap or a raster environment. In other words, you have a picture, there's a certain number of pixels that are within your image, and you're working on these pixels. And when you're working in vector, you're more than likely working in Adobe Illustrator. And vectors, if you can mentally envision this from the last time you were in Adobe Illustrator, when you create something like a rectangle, or if you create something like a circle, you'll remember that there are lines that connect around the outside of the circle or the rectangle. Do you remember that? And there are anchor points that are on either corner of the rectangle or located somewhere in the center of each curved section of your circle. Do you know what I'm talking about when I mentioned the lines and the anchor points that are on the rectangles and the circles and things?
Yes.
Well, that is the primary difference. Now, when you're talking about the vector, you're talking about resolution independence. What that means essentially is that because of the way that graphic is created with those lines and those anchor points, your image can be made as big or as small as you want, as often as you want. So you could literally change the size from something like maybe, a 1/4 of an inch to 50 inches, and you'd have no trouble doing that because it's resolution independent. Now, when we work in Adobe Photoshop, we are not working with resolution independent images. We're working with resolution dependent images. What that means very simply is that you have a couple of things that you have to deal with in a bitmap that you don't have to deal with in a piece of vector art, and that is the size and the resolution of the piece of vector art. Like, let's talk in JPEG. So the JPEG is going to have a starting size. So let's say the starting size is 6 inches wide. And let's say that the resolution has a resolution of 300 pixels per inch. Well, that means that if you wanted to print that, and I mean literally print it in a InDesign project, in a print environment, you'd be able to print that image at 6 inches because that's the size it is, and the resolution is 300, which would be big enough for it to print. If it were 6 inches and it had a resolution of 150, it wouldn't be possible to really print that in a high-end printing environment because the resolution isn't high enough. But if you were to print that image in, say, you guys got a Staples near you, or what's another one? Kinko's. You guys know what Kinko's or Staples are? Staples is? Anybody?
Yes.
All right. So if you go to Staples, they have the color copiers, right? If you go and you print something off of a color copier, the resolution that you need for that is about 150 to 180. So if you have something that's 6 inches and 180, that would be okay for you to go to print on one of those color copiers. But if you were to take it into a high-end printing environment, the resolution wouldn't be high enough. And the only way to make that resolution high enough is to reduce the size of the picture. So if it's 6 inches, in order to get it down to where it was 300 pixels, or I should say get it up to where it's 300 pixels per inch, you'd probably have to adjust the size down to close to half the size. So it would end up being maybe 3 inches to get that up to 300 pixels per inch. Am I losing you guys? Is what I'm saying, you know, confusing? Too confusing?
No.
No? Good. Great. And then, of course, you have the web, the internet. And the internet, you probably know from experience, uses 72 pixels per inch. Okay, now, if it were 6 inches and 72 pixels per inch, I'm not sure how many pixels that would be. 72 times 6 would be whatever that is. I don't know. So many pixels, 72, I don't know. I can't, see, again, I can't do math in my head. I can't remember phone numbers, so I have problems with this. But at any rate, 72 times 6 would be the number of pixels that you would have. That would give you an idea how big the image could possibly be if you put it into a browser, okay? So really what this whole thing comes down to is when you're dealing with a piece of art that's resolution independent, you can make it as big or as small as you want, but when you're working with something that's resolution dependent, you need to make sure that you understand how big it is in terms of size, inches, and how many pixels per inch you have. And there are 3 basic standards, 300 pixels per inch, 150 to 180, and then 72. Okay, and those are the things that you look for when you're actually working with this. I know this is beyond what we're dealing with here, but I just want to make sure that I say this to you because it's kind of an important aspect of working with Photoshop. It isn't nearly as important as in Illustrator because Illustrator is resolution independent and you can pretty much do what you want, but you have to watch out a little bit in Photoshop because you don't have that same capability. And it can be a little bit troublesome for you to work on. And I've done this, work for a long period of time on something, only to find out that you didn't consider the resolution and image size. And when you go to adjust the size of it, find that you can't make it big enough for what you want to do. And now you got to go in and you got to do the entire project over again, getting a larger photo because you didn't take into account the image size and resolution. Okay? So again, I'm sorry that I walked you through all that, but I just thought it was a very important thing for you to understand going in. All right? Am I forgiven? Okay. All right, so we're talking about layer masks and vector masks, and we're going to look at them in a minute. But what is a mask? Layers are probably the single most important element in Photoshop. And I don't think any of you have any problem understanding what a layer is in Photoshop, right? I mean, layers are central to the actual application of Photoshop. Are you guys clear and okay with understanding layers and how they work?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because we're going to go through it a little bit, but I just want to get a sense from you as to how well you feel, how comfortable you feel with the idea of them, all right? Layer masks, I believe when you understand how and why to use masks, you simply won't appreciate the power of Photoshop. So really, once you begin to understand how and why you can mask things on these layers, you'll really begin to get an appreciation for Photoshop and what you can do with it. That's essentially what I'm saying here. The term mask might not be understandable to somebody outside the realm of graphic design. The simplest form of mask is a way to apply something to a very specific portion of an image in order to either hide it or show it. So that's what we're going to be doing tonight in our project. We're going to be doing the same thing next week in our project, and we're going to be doing the same thing week 3 and week 4 in our project. So my point is that in each case, each week, we will be working with layer masks. And, you know, again, I just want to make sure that before we begin the process, I talk a little bit about them. And I actually have an example that I'm going to show you in a minute where we begin the process of looking at these two types of masks, all right? There are primarily two types of masks, clipping mask and layer masks. We will look at both of them momentarily. They're closely related, but different in their application, okay? So layer mask is something you apply to a given layer to control the transparency of that layer. Where layer opacity controls the transparency of the entire layer at once, a mask gives you a more precise control over specific areas of the layer. If you want the entire layer to be 30%, you could lower the opacity, right? You know what opacity is on a layer, right? You know that there's opacity and blend modes, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so if you want the entire layer to be lighter, you can lower it to 30%, and you would get a slightly transparent layer, and it would be light, and you'd be able to see partially through it. If you want the left side of a layer to be 30%, the left side, now the right side is not, but if you want the left side to be 30%, you wouldn't just lower the opacity of the layer. What you would do is you would create a mask and mask that left side of the layer, and then you could lower the opacity to 30%. Does it make sense? So far, so good? So when you add a mask to a layer, it covers the entire thing with an invisible grayscale canvas. There are ways to see that, and we'll check this out later. But as a general rule, applying mask to a layer won't cause any immediate visual difference unless you have an active selection at the time. So basically, you're going to see how that works momentarily. On this invisible canvas, you can paint white, black, or any level of gray in between. Generally, what you do is, again, it all depends on what you're doing, but generally what you do is you use black and white, and I will show you that shortly. The color that you paint tells Photoshop how opaque you want the pixels at that point. White means 100% opacity. Black means 0 opacity. Okay, gray can be anywhere in between. So if you have a 50% gray, it would mean that it's 50% opaque. And you'll see, I'll do this. Clipping masks are very similar to layer masks, only they use one layer to determine the transparency of another. A perfect example is what I'm about to show you, and that is where you take some type, some basic type, and you're going to use that type as a clipping mask. And I will show you that. In this scenario, you stack two layers on top of each other with the bottom layer being the determining factor of the transparency of the top. So in the sample that I'm about to show you, what I did was I created a layer that has some type on it. And I have a piece of art which is just a kind of a fancy background picture. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to clip that fancy picture of the background color to the type. And I do that by using a layer mask. Again, I'm going to show you this momentarily. Instead of using black and white values, clipping masks simply borrow transparency from the layer used to make them. namely the bottom layer. If the bottom layer has some areas that are opaque and some areas that are transparent, a clipping mask will allow those values to apply to the top layer. This one is hard to explain without an example, but you'll see an example in a moment. There's some really interesting functionality. You can still position and make changes to each of these layers independently by dragging around either layer. You can move the position around, and also you can apply layer effects to the compilation via the bottom layer. For instance, you can add a drop shadow. So how do you make a layer mask? Again, I will show you. So any questions so far? No? Okay, so again, I'm going to stop here for a minute. We'll go to the prompt in a moment, but I'm going to come in here and I'm going to get rid of this. Let me go to clipping mask. Okay, so here's our masking. This is the mask. So let me explain what I got here. I have this layer here, which is basically type. See it? All that is some live type. And I can select that type and I can change that type if I want. I'm not going to do that. Okay, so you understand you've made type in Photoshop before? You guys know how that works? Does anybody have a question about how to get type on the page like this? You're not going to have to do this, but I just want to make sure that you understand how I did it. Anybody got this?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, then I have this, which is a picture. This is basically a picture. And all it is just basically a bitmap showing some chalk lines. And then I have this layer here, which is basically some wood, okay? And I don't know why, but my wood got all out of position, so I'll get back to it though. And then I actually got some color down here, okay? All right, so I am going to show you how to start off by making a clipping mask. Now, what that statement I just made explained to you is that the clipping mask, in order for this to work properly, the clipping mask or the clipping object, which in this case is the text right here, has to be beneath the item that it's going to ultimately be clipping. All right, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be clipping that chalk into the shape of the text. Okay? Now, to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and I'm going to place my cursor. I'm going to place my cursor right between those two layers. See where I am? There's that line right between the two layers. And I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option key. I am on a PC. So are you guys on are you guys on Macs? What are you guys on?
Yes, Mac.
You're on Macs, right? Okay, so if you look at your space bar, right next to your space bar on the left, it should say Alt. No, Option, sorry. It says on mine, Alt. Yours says Option, right?
Well, it says both, actually, Option and Alt.
Oh, it does? That's even better. So basically what you do is keep in mind that whatever images is, and again, this is just a demonstration. So really, what I have here is I have a bitmap on a layer, and it's just some chalk. And then I have this word text right here, which is clipping. That's all it is. It's just a word. And it's beneath the chalk line. I'm going to hold the Alt and Option key, and you see what the icon does? You see how it changes? Little arrow with that little square next to it. See what it's doing? I want you to be certain of this, because this is how you do this, and I want to make sure that you understand it so that you will be able to do this. Are you good, everybody?
Yes.
I'm going to click, and you see what it did. See what it did? It clipped that chalk into that text. Okay? That's a clipping mask. That's a clipping mask. Okay?
That's pretty simple.
No, it's very simple. And the reason I'm making a big deal out of it is because it's so basic, it's so simple, that I want to kind of get it out of the way, and I want to make sure that nobody's going to have any problem with it, because there's not 50 ways of doing this. There's one way of doing it. And now there's another method for this, and that is to use the layer mask property right here. See this little button down here? Add layer mask. You see that? Have you ever used a layer mask before, anybody?
I think I did, but I really don't remember it.
Okay. Well, again, I want to try to be extremely careful about this because I want to make sure that you understand what's going on. So here I still have this text here. Now, you know what? Actually, I think what I'm going to do is something a little different. Let me hide the text, and let me bring up my wood. Okay, and let me go edit. Let's go to, where are we at here? I got to get on that layer. Okay, edit. Let's go transform, rotate. Okay, and let me see if I can rotate this around, hold the shift key down, and so I can get it locked in. There we go. That's pretty good. And it seems big. Let me go. Well, I don't care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. Place. That's fine. Okay, so we got some wood texture here, right? All right, so now here's the deal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a shape here, which I'm going to use as this mask right here. I'm going to create this thing and use this add layer mask. So what I'm going to do is right here, you see where I'm on my shapes? That's my rectangle tool. If you see down in the lower corner of that tool, did anybody ever tell you that whenever you see these tools in the toolbar, if there's a little triangle in the lower right corner?
Yes, that it has more tools inside of it.
Exactly. I just want to make sure that you're all aware of that. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to go to the custom shape tool. So you got rectangle, you got rounded rectangle, ellipse, polygon, line, and custom shape tool, which is very similar to what you got in Adobe Illustrator. The only thing that you don't have in Illustrator is a custom shape tool. That's the only thing that's different. All the rest of those tools are pretty much the same. I think the line tool is a separate tool in Illustrator, but the custom shape tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the word clipping back up here, okay? And I got this pair of scissors. If you look up here in the shapes, there's all kinds of shapes up here, and you can even get more shapes. But I'm going to, just for the sake of it, click on that little scissors, and I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to hold the shift key down, and I'm just going to drag out a pair of scissors, okay? And notice that I have the fill set to, see, I got the fill set to blue, but you see how I have that set to shape right there? There are ways you could show this. I could show it as a path, shape, or pixels, okay? I'm going to change it to pixels. Now, when I changed it to pixels, what it did is it essentially rasterized that shape. In other words, that shape is basically, essentially a bitmap, okay? And you can do that here. I mean, you can change these things from one to another, shape, path, or pixels. In this case, I made it pixels. Now, what I want to do with this is I want to clip this wood into the shape of those scissors, okay? I could do this the way I just showed you by dragging this above the scissors, okay? And I could hold down the Alt and Option key, and I could get what I'm looking for. You see how I did that? But we already did that. I'm going to go Edit, Undo. I'm trying to show you the other way of doing it, which is to use that mask right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit on top of those scissors. I'm going to hold the Shift key down, and let's see here. Whoop, hold on. There. Use the Control key. Underneath your Shift key, does it say Control key or Command on your machine?
Control.
Control? Okay. So I clicked on my thumbnail, which is actually my little scissors, and I held the Control key down. And can you see the little dancing ants there? Are you able to see that on your computer screen?
Yes.
Okay. So that means that there's a selection going on there. Now, what I want to do is I want to mask this wood layer. I'm going to, with that selected, okay, I'm going to, first of all, hide this. It's still selected. Make sure that you're on the wood layer, and you're going to come over here, and you're going to click on Add Layer Mask. And when you add Layer Mask, you see what it did. it created my scissors. And notice the difference. Whereas this one here, the chalk layer, has a little arrow that's pointing down to the layer beneath it. That's telling you essentially, let me bring this back so that you could see this. That's telling you that that layer is being controlled by that clipping layer, and we did it by virtue of sitting on the space between those two layers and holding down the Alt key and clicking, and that's clipping that using the words clipping. This guy here, I selected the scissors by clicking on the thumbnail and holding the Control key down. And then I selected the layer, and I went in and I created a layer mask. And what I want you to see here, and this is a very important thing, because right off the bat, this is where we're going to be heading tonight. We're going to be actually doing more of this in a little bit. I want you to take a very careful look at that little thumbnail that's right next to that wooden layer. You can see that there is an area of black and an area of white. Everybody see that? No problems with that, right? Now, the important thing for you to understand here is that wherever you see black in that thumbnail, the background is being held back. It's being made transparent. It's being concealed. The white area, which is the area that is actually being used to show the background texture of the wood, the white reveals. So keep this in mind when you work with this layer mask. White reveals and black conceals. Okay? Any questions? No? I also want to show you something else. I have my channels open. You can go to Window, and you can go down to, where are you at? Channels. Where are you? Right there. Channels. Window Channels. Notice that this image, go to Image Mode, and you can see that this is an RGB image. Everybody see that RGB image? So we have a composite image here in the channels, and we have our red image, our red layer, our red channel. That's what the red channel looks like. There's the green channel. There's the blue channel. And we also have this, which is our mask. If we click on this, we have a mask. Now, the mask gets shown in red. So everything but this area right here, if you take a look at it, that mask looks exactly like that mask right there. So everything that you're seeing outside the shape of that little scissors is been red over. It's got an overlay of red on it. Can you see that? Can you understand that, what I'm saying? You got any questions about this? I'm only showing you this because I'm trying to give you an idea how this works. Do you guys have any problems with this? Or are we good?
I'm good.
Good. Excellent. All right. So basically that's it. I'm going to hide this. I'm going to come back in here, and I'm going to show you that I can actually make, if I click on this, I can come in here and I can adjust the colors. Let me go to, let's go to hue saturation. I could come in here, and because this is a bitmap, I can come in here and I can colorize things. Let me see if it'll get to work. Actually, you know what? I'm on the wrong layer. I'm sorry. Let me get out of here. Let me click on the chalk layer. Wrong layer. Now click on this. Click on hue saturation. There we go. Now, the bitmap is being, oh, and by the way, another thing that you're going to want to do is if you're going to colorize just that chalk layer, you're going to have to do the same thing. You're going to have to come over here, and you're going to have to click on that line between the chalk layer and that layer adjustment. Why? So that it will only apply to that chalk layer. Okay, let me go edit undo, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, if I go in here and if I make an adjustment, you see how it changes everything? I mean, you can't miss that, right? It goes in here and changes everything, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Right? Watch what happens when I come over here and hold down the Alt key and click on this. Everything goes back to being exactly the way it looks, except now watch what happens. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just adjust. See how I'm just adjusting the actual word clipping? Guys, got any question about what I'm doing here? Does it make sense? I hope it does. All right?
Yep.
All right, great. All right, so that is my demonstration of clipping masks and layer masks right here. Here's my come on. There's my layer mask, and there's my clipping mask. The difference between the clipping mask is we're using an object. In this case, we're using those black letters. And the thing that's really great about this is with a clipping mask such as this, okay, I can come in here and I can double click on that layer and I can change that copy, H-E-L-L-O, hello. And now watch, the clipping mask still works because it's live text. So we can go in and we can edit this anytime that we want. All right. Now, again, why am I starting with this? It's simple. The reason I'm starting with this is because in a certain way, what I just did here pretty much governs everything that we're going to be working with through the course of the next 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 nights. Everything that we're going to be working on involves some of this. So it just seemed to me like a good idea to start off in the most simplified way as I possibly could by going through a little bit of this and demonstrating a little bit of this so that, you know, hopefully you'll have some idea how to approach this stuff. All right. I guess that's it. Unless you guys have any questions, I'll move on. Are you guys good? Can I move on, or you have any questions at all? None?
No, you can move on.
Great. All right. So for this assignment, and this is the prompt. I've jumped over all this. Basically, it's just talking about video and animation. You'll read this. The prompt in this particular case is for the assignment. And again, I'll be here tomorrow night. We're going to be working on this again tomorrow night, and I'll probably show you a couple of other examples tomorrow night as well. But for this assignment, you're going to create a 20-frame cinemagraph. Now, what is a cinemagraph? A cinemagraph is a made-up word that they came up with that basically does what that horse is doing. You see the horse, how its hair is flickering, but the rest of the horse is totally stationary? That's what a cinemagraph does. It takes one element from within the context of a video, an MP file, an MP4 file, and animates just one little element. And that is achieved by masking in a very similar way to the way that we masked in that clipping mask example that I just showed you. So again, the reason that I showed you that example was because before I begin this process here, I thought it would be a really good idea to just give you an idea how to go about doing this in a simpler way. Not that this is terribly difficult, but that was, I think, a lot simpler. All right, so there's your simple cinemagraph. You have a choice of several videos here. I downloaded all of them. I used download video 1. Now, let me explain something about these videos. These are the worst videos I've ever come across. They are absolutely horrible. The person who made these videos didn't even bother to set their camera on a tripod. So the video is bouncing and wiggling all over the place. It's an absolute nightmare to work on. And you're never going to get, see how beautifully seamless that horse is? Look, that horse is sitting there nice and solid. He's not jumping around, and that hair is flowing in the wind. It's actually quite nice, isn't it? When you do this one, it's not going to be quite as nice. And I totally understand that, and I will not hold it against you any more than I hold it against myself. You guys have heard the principle, garbage in, garbage out, right? Every one of you know that, and everybody has had to deal with that, correct? Not something that you're going to be fooled by. So anyway, he's got these videos here. There's download video 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 of them, all right? And what you're going to do is you're going to import one of the videos into Photoshop. You could also use one of your own, but you have to let me know in advance that you're doing it. Please don't just go ahead and do this. It's telling you to trim the video to 20 frames. Does it have to be 20 frames? No, it doesn't have to be 20 frames. Matter of fact, I'm going to show you how I trimmed mine. And if you want to trim yours in a similar way to the way I trim mine, that's perfectly fine. You're going to isolate and mask the frame in order to reveal movements in a small portion of the video. And then you're going to loop the animation. Okay? You're going to export it as a GIF, adjusting the settings in the file export drop-down menu and optimize your GIF to less than 800 KB. All right, so I'm going to make a couple of notes here because I haven't done that yet. So you're going to optimize. Hold on. Optimize to 800 KB. Okay, right. And then, of course, save your Photoshop file. Always save your files. Always save your work files. You're going to name your GIF DES-323 assignment 1, your first and last name, and then submit your looped animated GIF for grading. Save your native PDF file for future editing. Do not submit it. My recommendation would be that when you submit the GIF for grading, that you zip it. You guys know how to zip it or compress it? You guys know how to zip or compress your files? Have you all done that before?
Yes.
You all good? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so you got any questions about any of this? It's really not that it's not that complicated. Just keep in mind what they're telling you to do here, and I'll show you how I did what I did, and you can kind of follow what I did. We all good? Let's go back to Photoshop, and let me get rid of Dodge. No, let's get rid of this. No, let's get rid of clipping. No. Here's my cinegraph, okay? Here's my cinegraph. Now watch what happens here. Let's see if I can go to my window, timeline. There we go. Okay, so the timeline. Here's my timeline. Now watch what happens here. Keep in mind what they told you to do. They told you to take a video, all right? And the video, you're going to isolate it in such a way that one of the elements within the video moves while the rest of the video stays stationary. Guys, right? Isn't that what it said?
Yes.
Okay. Now watch what happens when I come over here. This is my timeline down here. I'm going to bring this up a little bit. Okay, let me go view, zoom out. There we go. Okay, so there's my timeline. I'll explain more about the timeline in a minute. But anyway, the timeline is located. Go to Window and go down the timeline, and you can bring the timeline out. Okay, so everybody's clear on where to find the timeline?
Yes.
Window, timeline. All right, now watch. Right here is the button that you use to play the video. Watch what happens when I play the video. First of all, I'm going to click on, you see where it says loop playback? See that little check mark right there? See that little gear? When I go down on the gear, when I click the gear, I go down to where it says loop playback, and I make sure that there's a check mark there. All that does is it guarantees that this is my small little 20-frame video. It's actually a little bit bigger than 20 frame, but that doesn't matter. I'm not concerned about that. What this is going to do is it's going to play this video repeatedly. And the only reason I got it set up that way is so that you could actually see what goes on here. Okay? So I'm just showing you that's how you do it. You just click on loop playback, make sure that there's a check mark there. With it off, that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like when it's on. This will loop. Now watch when I click on the play button what happens here. First of all, let me bring the timeline back to the beginning, and now I'll click this little play button and watch what happens. Okay, so you see what's going on here? The one little dog is going to move around, see? And the rest of the image is going to stay stationary. Okay? This is all you're going to do. All right? Everybody cool with this? You understand what I'm trying to accomplish here? Any questions? Nothing? All right. So I'm going to start the process. Before I start the process, let me point out that I have two images here. And if you look very carefully, this image right here has basically a mask on it, a layer mask on it. Now, if you remember what I told you before, I told you that white conceals and black reveals, correct? Right. So if you look at this, the majority of the image is being concealed with the white. And that little area is the area over top of the dog, that little dog. And if you take a look, watch when I hide the background group. Watch what happens. Actually, yeah, no, that's correct. When I hide this, you see what happens? I'm sorry. The white reveals and black conceals. When I hide this, the whole image of the dog and the whole image of the background is showing, but there's a hole right here. This one little hole right here. And that hole is enabling me to see the dog that's on the lower layer. So if I hide this layer, okay, and if I show this layer, watch what happens when I play this. Both of these dogs, watch, they both are going to move. See how they're both moving? See that? So by a combination of two things, by a combination of this layer, which is the video layer, and this layer right here, which is essentially a bitmap layer, okay, or a still layer, cinemagraph still, that's been masked. By those two together, this is what I end up with, which is the project. All right? Now, the only thing you need to do now, so you have any questions at all about what your project should look like? No. And you can see it's a pretty awful video. It's a terrible video. And so don't expect this thing to be like super deluxe. It's not going to be. And it's not your fault. It's the video is not particularly good. So you're stuck with a situation where you do the best you can with it. And you can see mine, it's the same thing with mine. Like it's jumping around a little bit because the video is jumping around. See how that's jumping around a little bit? It's all because the video jumps around. So I'm not going to fault you on this because it won't be your fault at all. All right? All right, so let's actually start this. Let me start this thing, and let me build it for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go File, Open, and I'm going to go into my go to my desktop, DES. Let me see here, desktop. There we go, and let's go into week 1, and let's go to video 1. Okay, I used video 1. Now, I don't care. I got all 4 of them here, video 1, 2, 3, and 4. I don't care which one you use. I'm just using video 1 because I already did it in video 1. Okay, so look. Here's video 1. This is what you get. You start off with your timeline. Now, if you don't have this thing turned into a video, what might happen is you may see something here. Let me see if I can do this. How can I do this? I guess I have to shut this timeline. Let me shut the timeline down and see if I can make this happen. There we go. And let's go. Let's close this and let's try it again. See if I can do this. File, Open. And let's open 1. Let's see if I can make this happen. Video 1 and hit Open. There. Okay. So now it came back. It came back to this video. All right. So if it turned, I have an actual something I should show you. I have actually got in. Let's jump back to announcements real quick. I don't know whether any of you have gone in and looked at the announcements yet.
Yes.
You haven't or have?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
No, not yet.
Okay. So helpful video for week 1. lot of videos for week 1. Helpful video for week 1, I believe there's 2 in here. Yeah, there's 2. How to create a cinemagraph in Photoshop, creating a cinemagraph in Photoshop CC. These 2 videos do exactly what I'm going to do tonight. The only difference is you can watch this without, I think these videos are approximately a half hour, where my video is 2 hours. So if you want to reference something, you know, a little different than what I'm doing, just watch these videos, okay? They're very clear and they're very exact, just like what I'm doing. But let me just show you. So here's the deal. We have this video. If I play this video, watch what happens now. There's the video, and it's going to play, and there's a whole lot of it here. I'm going to stretch it out just a little bit. Let me stretch it out just a little bit. So there's a lot of video here. It's like 40 seconds, and we don't want 40 seconds. We only want like 20 frames. So I'm not going to make you go to 20 frames because it's too much work. What I am going to do is show you a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to show you how to get the video about where you want it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it to the beginning. All right, so I don't like the dog's face here. I kind of like this. I kind of like it when the dog gets to about there, okay? So you see the dog's about there. My timeline indicator, see where it is? It's not at the very end. You see where it is? It's sort of like a little bit in. You understand what I'm looking at here?
Yes.
Now, if you go to the end of that video, you'll get this little symbol. Can you see that little black symbol there? Can you see what it's doing? I want to make sure that you see it. Can you see it, guys?
Yeah, it's where you can adjust where it starts.
Right. So what you do is you just click on this and you can drag it over to that line. And what it does is after it adjusts it, it slips it right back over to the starting position. Okay? So now look, he starts like this. He starts right there, which I think looks pretty good. So how much of this dog do I want to show? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slowly scrub this thing around, and I'm just going to look and see where he goes, and I don't know, you know, I'll keep going. I think when he looks back, I think he does look back. As he looks back, let's see where he goes. Before he starts to move, let me see where up there you go. Okay, so I don't want to go to this point. So what I think I want to do is I want to stop where he goes right about, because remember, this is only supposed to be 20 frames. That's probably good right there. That's probably good right there. Okay, now that is more than 20 frames. Okay, it actually looks like it's 30 frames per second. No, it isn't. It's 5 seconds, I think. 5 seconds and 8 frames. All right, but that's fine. Okay, I don't mind that it's that long. Here's what I want to do now is I'm going to do this. I'm going to come on this end, and I'm going to use that same mechanism to click and drag that over until I get to the timeline right there. Okay. Now, I could do this. Let's go edit, undo. I could actually cut this thing. See here, right here? I can cut this thing right here. Split it playhead. That's the playhead, guys. See that? That's the playhead. I could split this. And now I've split this there. There's a reason that I don't want to split it. And the reason I don't want to split it, I'm going to go edit, undo. The reason I don't want to split it is because it may turn out that after I drag this over to here, you drag it over to the timeline indicator, if I change my mind and I decided that I wanted to maybe move it out just a little bit more, like about like that, okay, and I could then move the timeline over and see what I get, and that's okay. If I split it, I wouldn't have been able to do that because I would have cut it at that point and it would have been a permanent destructive method. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. So all I'm saying to you is that there's nothing wrong with cutting something, but you don't have to cut anything because the way that this is done allows you to basically trim it this way. And it works perfectly fine, and it's flexible, and you can change things. All right? Any questions so far? Do you think you can handle this so far?
Yes.
Okay. Please listen to me. I have no idea what you know or how you know or if there's any, you let me know. Speak to me. That's why you're here. You need to, communicate with me and let me know because I want to make sure that you're going to have no trouble doing this. All right, so now we have our little video, and this is what the video is going to do. It's just going to play. All right, I'll play it through one more time so that you could just see what happens here. All right, these two dogs kind of move around a little bit. They're very cute dogs, by the way. And that's basically all there is to it, all right? And so what I want to do is I want to make this into a cinemagraph. So what I'm trying to do is decide, you know, I could do this dog or I could do this dog. I think I'll do this dog again. So what I want to do is I want to make this dog move and this dog not move. To do that, I'm going to start off by creating a duplicate of my little video clip. And I can do that by right-clicking and going to Duplicate Layer. See that? Right-click. You guys got a right and a left mouse?
Well, we have a trackpad that's solid.
Well, do you know how to get this pop-up menu?
Yeah, you can also create a duplicate layer by Command J.
Yeah, you can also come up here to Layer, Duplicate Layer. Okay. And I'm just going to call this, okay, I'm going to call this still. All right. The reason that I'm calling this still is because I'm going to turn this image into a still. I'm going to hit OK. So now I have my layer 1. I'm going to call this my video, vid, and my still. But the problem is that the still is a video, okay? So what I want to do here is this. I want to turn this into a still image. So I can do this one of two ways again. I can use my right arrow to come down and I can rasterize the layer, or I can go to Layer, Rasterize, Video, okay? So any questions about that? There's two ways you could go. Layer, rasterize video, or right-click, rasterize layer. You good?
Yes.
Click rasterize layer. Now here's what I want you to take note of. This guy here has that kind of like bluish background. This guy here is changed to purple, hasn't it? You see it? So what you're looking at is this is telling you that these two are different than one another. Also, if you take a look at the video layer has that little icon in the bottom showing you that it's the layer thumbnail. It's showing you that that's a video. You see the little piece of film down there? This one up here does not have that, because now watch what happens. With this layer showing, watch what happens. When I click on this thing, actually, before I do that, these things also, I want you to notice that they're also in the same line. It's called Video Group 1. You see where that layer says Video Group 1? And both of them are in Video Group 1. Can you see that? Video Group 1, and they're the two videos side by side. They're the two individual elements side by side. Look up here. You see where it says Video Group 1, and you see where those two are within Video Group 1. What I want to do is I want to put the still layer on a different layer up here. To do that, I'm going to drag this up outside of Video Group 1, just like that. Okay? Now look, do you see what happened? I'm going to open this up so that you could see. Can you see now that I have Video Group 1, and I have this layer that's called still? Okay? You got that? Huh?
Do you mind doing that one more time?
Yeah, let's go edit undo. All right. Now, what happens is, first of all, this is my video. That's my still. Both of them appear originally when I duplicate it on Video Group 1, right there. There's my layer. Watch when I hide this. See? When I show it, there are my two layers in Video Group 1. So it's a group. It's like if I did this with my layers in Photoshop. All right. So what I want to do is, I don't want these to be on two layers, because watch what happens. I'm going to actually move this over a little bit. I want you to see what happens. If I play this, see, this video plays and these guys move, and then all of a sudden I'm onto the still and you see how they're not moving. So I can't really edit this the way I want to edit it like this. It doesn't work, okay? So in order to make this work, I have to take the still layer and I have to drag it outside of the video group 1 folder. Doing that, I create another layer in here called still. So I have video group 1 and I have still. And now all of a sudden, this isn't at the end of this layer. This is on its own separate layer up here. Did you get it that time?
Yes.
Good. Now I'm going to move this over. It's exactly the same size as the other one. And I'm going to bring this over to the first frame. Okay, so watch what happens when I click and play this. Because the still is in front of the video, when I play this, you're not going to see anything happen because it's a still image. And the image is just basically going to sit there. Okay? Are we clear so far?
Yes.
All right, now our object here is, let me stop this and let me bring it over to the end. Our object is that we want to do something to create an animation that's going to move this little dog right here and leave everything else stationary, stable, okay? To do that, I'm now going to get into creating a mask element that I can use to mask this, this little piece of art, okay? So to do that, where I got my still layer selected here, I'm going to create a new layer above it, and I'm going to name that layer mask, okay? Mask. Now, here's the deal. I have my, and this element has to be brought over, and it has to be dragged out so that it is the length of my little video, okay? So when I did that, just make sure you adjust everything to the size. Everything has to end up the same size, all right? Now, here's what I want you to understand. I'm starting off at the end. I'm not starting off at the beginning. I could start at the beginning if I want, okay? I'm going to hide the still layer, okay? So the still layer is hidden, and I can start at the beginning if I want, but I think what I want to do is I want to start at the end. I'll start at the end, right about here. Okay, and on this mask layer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in. Let me zoom in on this. Let me zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to zoom in on this, right about like that's perfect. I'm going to get the Paintbrush tool, all right? Paintbrush tool. Now, I don't know whether you know this or not, but you can adjust the size of the Paintbrush tool. Do you know where your little fancy brackets are on your keyboard?
Yeah, I know how to do that.
Okay, you can also come up here and you can also set the hardness and the size here, you know what I mean? So I'm going to leave it alone because I think this size is probably pretty good. And I have this set to blue. Doesn't really matter what color you use on this. I'm going to set it to blue, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start drawing over top of this little dog. Okay, I'm going to just draw all around this little dog. And I'm going to draw as close to the edge as I can. I don't want to go nuts and drag all the way around. I'm going to drag pretty close to this guy. When I get down here, I'm going to make it smaller so I can actually paint a little bit better down here. Okay, and I'm going to just paint over this little dog. All right, I'm going to paint right over him, just like that. Make it a little bit bigger again. Whoops, I went the wrong way. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to keep coming around here. I'm just going to make sure I paint over him perfectly. Make sure he's covered. All right, hold on, bear with me. All right, make this a little smaller. And I'm going to come in here and paint right here. Be very careful to paint right here. Just drag it right on across. Like I say, the video isn't very good, so you don't have to kill yourself to do this, but you should make sure that you get all around this dog and he's covered. You want him to be covered. Okay? So I'm just going to keep painting around this dog until I get him completely covered. Like this. And I'm going to come up here and I'm going to paint down and paint over him. Just like that. And I'm going to keep coming down like this. Cover him right up. All right. And then I'm going to fill him in after I get him done. Let me get him. He's almost done. Come over to here. Okay. And then I'll come down and I'll paint right like that. Okay, and then I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger, and I'll fill him in. Just fill him all in. He's just going to be solid blue for now. Okay, keep filling him in. Like this. Come on, you. Oops. Okay. There he is. You get the general idea?
Yes.
Okay. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the timeline indicator. Now, here's the thing that you have to understand. I just painted over this dog in one frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly move the timeline along, and I'm going to watch to see whether any part of the dog's body shows from underneath that mask. You see how it's starting to show there? Okay, so I'm going to bring it out a little bit more to see where it goes. So you see what I got to do is I got to come out here. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller, and I got to paint some more. I got to paint some more. See? Because you want to cover this dog up. You want to make sure that in the end, he's completely covered. Okay, so where he comes out here, he starts to poke out over here, you're going to cover him again. Make sure you're covering him. I don't know whether any of that shows down there or not. Let's continue. So I'm just going to keep moving along the timeline and watching to see if the dog pokes out anywhere. Yep, you see it come out? So wherever he comes out, you're going to paint. So you're creating a mask to mask this dog out like this. All right? How am I doing, guys? Make sense so far? Not hard, is it? Might be a little bit of him showing right there, so I'll paint that. All right, so we keep going. And he's coming out again. So I think I actually have to come out a little bit more here. And here's some of them peeking out. So I'm going to come out here as well. All right, and then I'm just going to keep moving along. And let's see if I can see any more of him.
Down at the bottom.
Yep, down at the bottom, carefully. A little bit more down here.
And the ear.
Yep, here's a little bit here. And the ear, like that. And the back a little bit here. And a little tiny bit by the foot there. Okay? And then just keep going. Keep going. And I'm going to need to go. See how it jumps around, though? It's really terrible. It's pretty bad. Okay. Okay, so this has got to come out a little bit. And this has got to come up a little bit. And this has got to come up a little bit. Okay, so essentially what I'm doing is I'm just making sure that I'm masking the little guy. There, you see it's coming out big time. Here's some down here coming out. And there's a little bit more of this down here coming out. And there's a good bit of this coming out, so I'll just come right around like that. Okay? And I think that's part of his nose poking out right there as well. I don't know about that. And then this here, a little bit more up here. Good. Okay, and let's see. I'm at the beginning. So there you go. So I can slowly, let's see if I go through it, what happens. Okay. Does that look like it's covered to you guys? Did you see anything pop out anywhere? Not really, right?
Yeah, I didn't see anything.
Maybe just a tiny bit more along the bottom here. There we go. That's probably pretty good. Okay, so now I have this little mask that I've created. So what do I want to do with this? I want to apply it to my still image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to this mask layer, hold the control key down, and click. And you see what it does? It makes a selection. This is exactly what I did in the other one, right? Are we good?
Yes.
All right, now watch what happens. With this layer, I'm going to hide. This layer here, which is my still layer, I'm going to select. And I'm going to click on the Add Layer Mask, and I get this. Okay, now the problem is that if I play this way, watch what happens. Everything else is going to move but that little dog. You see? Now, that's okay if that's what you want to do. Let me go view fit on screen. There's nothing wrong with this if that's what you want to do. this would be acceptable. If you wanted to submit this, that would be perfectly acceptable because that's doing what the cinemagraph is supposed to do. But what I wanted to do is I wanted it to be reversed. I wanted this dog over here to be sitting and this dog to be moving. All right, so I'm going to stop this. I'm going to come over to my still image. I'm going to go to the window menu, and let's see, I can't do it from here. I'm going to go to image, adjust, and I want to invert. Okay, image, adjust, invert. Now, before I do this, keep in mind that I'm going to change the black, which is showing everything, to white, which is going to hide everything, and this is going to go black, and that will show. So image, adjust, invert, and see here now, there is my white, there is my black. If I play this, that little dog moves, and everything else stays stationary. And it repeats. Okay? So what do you guys think? Do you think you could pull this off?
Yeah.
Yeah, you good? You got it?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So now the final thing, let me go File, Save, and I'm going to call this, I'm going to put this on my desktop. In my desktop, I created a folder. Let's go to week 1. Here we go, in here, and call this dog video, and hit save, and hit OK. And there you have it. Now, that is my Photoshop file, dog video PSD. That's my Photoshop file. What you want to do is you want to save this thing as a JPEG, and you want to optimize it to 300 pixel or 800 kilobytes. So what you want to do is you want to turn this into a GIF. Okay. So I'm going to go to the File menu, and let me see, File, yeah, Export. There we go. File, Export, Save for Web Legacy. This is very important. Go to File, Export, Save for Web Legacy. And then the Save for Web dialog box comes up. And let me walk you through the process of this. Have you guys done anything with this Legacy Save for Web dialog box at all, guys? Any of you?
No.
No? So they don't use this a whole lot anymore. They generally use other methods of doing this, but the thing that I can tell you is that for this particular output as a animated GIF, you have to go through the Save for Web dialog box. So what this does basically is this shows you the original, that's the original, and it shows you the optimized version, and it shows you 2-up so that you can compare the two. And you can drag these and you can look at any part of this that you want. So here's what the original looks like, and here's what the bottom one looks like. This is what you're going to export. So as you can see, I mean, this looks pretty terrible. This guy looks okay, but when you get over to this dog, it looks pretty awful. So what we need to do with this is we need to go in here and we need to see if we can modify this. First of all, the most important thing, in order for this thing to be exported as a animated GIF, you have to make sure that this is set to GIF, okay? Make sure that that is set to GIF. Okay? Now, you can come in here and you can set this to 256 colors, and you have different types of methods you can use for outputting this. You got perceptual, you got selective, and you could actually look at this and see what they look like. See, now it's going to apply that. Let's see what it looks like, how different it is. See how much better selective is? Let me go back to perceptual because I want you to see this. Watch. Yeah, look at perceptual. Look at our dog. Doesn't that look awful?
Looks more like a cartoon.
More like a what?
A cartoon.
Yeah, it's like it's posterized. And I mean, I don't think you want that. I mean, you want something that looks a little bit better. So what I did was I just simply changed the setting. And this is why you're looking at this 2 up, because this is what the original looks like. What you're doing is you're comparing the original to what you're about to output. And you want to make sure that in the end it looks as much like the other as you possibly can. This is 1.17 megabytes. They want this thing to be 800K, which might be a little difficult. So let me go to perceptual. Let me go to selective. Let's start by doing that. This is 4.803 megabytes. So I'm going to have to see if I can try that. What does that bring it up to or down to? Yeah, see, that cuts it in half. Really cuts it in half, down to 2.928 megabytes. Now, the only other thing I can think of here is we don't need transparency. Well, maybe we do. Let me see. Hold on. No, we don't need transparency, so that's okay. Let's try knocking. See, it brings it back up, though. Yeah, that's no good. Bring back the transparency. It brought it back up. 2.939 megabytes. I'm trying to get it down to 800K. I ain't going to be able to do it. Let me bring it down to 64 colors. Yeah. Okay, here's the problem. I'll explain to you what the problem is. I was supposed to make this thing 20 frames. I decided to make it longer than 20 frames. So by making it longer than 20 frames, I'm really not going to get 800K. So I guess all I can say to you is that if you want to make your video smaller, you'll probably get closer to 800K, okay? That's all I can say to you. Because I'm not getting, see over here where it says 2.938 megabytes, that should say 800K. And it's not going to say that because it's just basically too much. There's too much video there. Am I making sense? I'm not confusing anybody, am I?
Will it submit if it's still a little bit over?
You're going to zip it and submit it.
Okay.
And if you have any problems, you let me know right away.
Okay.
All right. All right. So here's a couple of things that I want you to understand. First of all, I don't know, did they give you a size on this thing? Let me go back to the assignment. Let's see if they gave you a size, because I don't remember now that I think about it. Let me go to size and see what we want here. Assignment 1, animated GIF. Did they give you a size? Oh, let's see. Optimize your GIF to 800K. It doesn't really give you a size. So you know what? Let me just try one thing. It doesn't give you a size. Let me do this, though. This is set to image size 640. Let me try making this down. Let me bring this down to 400. And let's see what that looks like. Yeah, see, it's, hold on. Let's see if it's, no, it brought it down. It brought it down. And it's, yeah, see, this is 1.188 M. So you know what? Why don't we just go with that? All right, bring it down to 400, something like 400 pixels per inch, or 400 pixels wide. Okay, you guys got that? Because that is better. Now, here's what I want to show you. You can come in here and you can play the animation, and you can watch what the animation does. See how the animation plays? Looks pretty good, right? You see it playing in here?
Yes.
Now, you can also come in here and set the quality. You can see, I don't know whether any of these are going to really change. Let's see, bicubic, sharper, smoother. Bicubic, bilinear, nearest neighbor. Let's try making it smoother. I don't know whether it's going to do anything at all. Let me see. I'm just playing around with this to see what how it affects this. It looks okay that way, and it actually made it, I don't know, did it make it smaller? 1.188? I don't know whether it did or it didn't. Anyway, 400. Now, looping options. The only other thing you might want to do is come in here. See where it says looping options? Drop that down and change it from once to forever. What that'll do now is that makes it so that this will just repeatedly play. It'll go through, it'll play its process, and it'll just keep playing. Okay? Just like that. Okay? All right. Now, one other thing I want to show you here, and the only reason I want to show you this is because we've got plenty of time. all right, is you can preview this thing. So you're going to come over here and you're going to preview this. And what it's going to do is it's going to open up a web browser. Open up a web browser. And here, it's now showing you in a browser how this thing is going to play. Now, the interesting thing is, see, it plays in the web browser. It also gives you some information about it. Like, for instance, it gives you the format, the dimensions, the size. See, it's 1.188 megabytes. Settings, it gives you the settings. But what's really cool is, you see what it gives you here, is it gives you your HTML. So if you wanted to, you could actually copy this. You don't necessarily want to copy the HTML, the head, and the body HTML. But what you might want to do is you might want to copy, let's see, the head. You want to copy this. Okay, so I don't know. Do you guys know much about HTML and Dreamweaver?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, you know that there is a head section on a web page, right?
Yeah.
In HTML, there's a head area and there's a body area. And you know that basically what the head area does is the head area allows you to put content into the head area that will not directly show on the page, but will influence things on the page. And on the body section will be the elements that will actually show on the page. Okay? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So here's what you could do with this. You have your HTML, which is the tag that defines the page. You have your head, and there's your closing tag for the head. So you know that this stuff right here is the stuff that goes in the head section of your HTML page to play that video. So if I wanted to put this on a web page, I would copy this, paste it into my head section. Then what I would do is I'd come in here and I would copy this right here. And I would paste that into my body section. And what would happen is wherever I pasted this would play on that page. So that's what this is. It gives you the information that you could use to display this on a web page. And I'm only showing you this because I got plenty of time to show you this, and I figured it's something that you should really know. All this stuff means things, and you might not need it right now. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I can't even remember the last time somebody actually had me make an animated GIF like this. I just don't get people giving me too many of them to do. But you have to keep in mind, you have to keep perspective on things. Just because somebody hasn't done it for 3 years to me doesn't mean that next week somebody may come along and ask you guys how to do it. You never know what's going to come your way. And you should know how to do these things, okay? And you should know that it's not hard to do these things. And what's most important is that some of the things that we did to create this thing is central to what we're going to learn in this course through the course of the next 3 weeks and tomorrow night's live session. All right? So are we good so far? Does this make sense? And can you see what your output is going to be, what you're going to submit for me? This little image up here, the little dog bouncing around. Any questions about that at all?
No.
No? You're good? Now, let me ask you this. You think I did this clearly enough for you that you'll have no trouble handling this? I mean,
Yeah.
was I okay with the way I showed you?
For me, yes.
Yeah? Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to get out of here because this is just a demonstration. And let's get back to this. So, save for web. We basically, have GIF. I've chosen selective. The colors are 256. No dither, transparency, and convert to sRGB. I don't think we need that too much. We probably could get rid of that. I'll leave it alone. I changed the size from whatever it was originally, which I don't remember now, 6 something I think, down to 400. And qualities by cubic smoother. I looped it forever, okay? And I'm going to hit save. Everything else is set. I'm going to hit save. It's going to come up, and I'm going to go to my desktop, and I'm going to look for my folder, which is week 1. And this is my dog. See what it says? Dog dash video GIF. You got it? Now, I can go format images and HTML, or images only, or HTML only. I am going to choose, because I want to generate not only the images but the HTML, I'm going to click both of them, and I'm going to hit save. And that's it. I'm going to now come over to my week 1, open this up, and I have my images. There's my dog video, Firefox HTML. There's my dog video. Now, I should be able to go to my browser, and I should create a page on my browser, and I should be able to take that video, drag and drop it right in there, and see how it plays. Look at that. See my little video playing in my browser. There's your video. That's what you're going to do. That's what I'm going to do. Okay? And what it does is, in the folder, it created the folder that has that video in it. Now, it said images, but you have to keep in mind that we did not save it as a series of images. What we created, what we had it create was an animated GIF. So that is the image. It's actually a dog video. If I look at properties, let's go to properties here. You'll see what this says. It's a GIF file. Okay, type of file is a GIF file. The thing that you have to keep in mind, though, is it is not an ordinary GIF file. It is primarily an animated GIF file. Okay, but it just calls it a GIF file, right? So I don't want you to be uncertain about any of this. I want you to be absolutely dead clear on what's going on here. You've created an animated GIF file. It's called a GIF file, but it is an animated GIF file. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here, and I'm going to go send to compress zip folder, and I'm going to zip the thing. And that right there, I don't know whether that compresses it enough. Let's see how much it really compresses it. Yeah, it's only knocked it down a little bit, 1.17 megabytes. Let me hit cancel. Okay? But that's what you're going to send me, that right there. Okay? Because I'm pretty sure you should have no trouble sending me a zipped file. That's it. You guys good?
Yeah.
Anything else I can tell you? I at this point, you know, I'm going to come back tomorrow night, and I'm going to do another one of these. I'm going to show you a little bit. One thing I probably could show you, I still got a little bit of time. One thing I could show you is this. Let's see what we got here. This is the convert to frame animation. I don't want to do that. Render for video. Okay, so I have a choice here. I could either, now this is an animated GIF. I can also save this as an MP4 file. Okay, so if it turns out that for some reason you need this as an MP4 file, now keep in mind that the videos, let me go to this and show you. Go to this week 1, and let me go to my make animate. Nope, wait. Yeah, I'm in the right place. Okay, here we go. Video 1. Let me see here. This is a property. It's an MP4 file. See it? MP4 file. So what I'm saying to you is that we started off with MP4 files. We made our modified file, which is that guy right there. Okay? Now, if we wanted to, we could go in here and we could click on this, and we could save this as an MP4 file. I'm going to hit cancel. Or I could go to, let's see, I'm going to go to file, export. Yeah, there we go. Where are we at? Export preferences. Share. Oh, yeah. What happened? Did it automate? Wait a minute. Batch process script. I thought it was right in here. I'm pretty sure it was in here. Export as ping. Preferences. Save for web legacy. Layers. It's not there. I don't know. Well, okay. I can't find it. It should have been here. where it's the same thing, basically. Automate, let's see, presentation, lens correct, script. Huh, I'll be darned. I could have sworn it was an export, but I don't see it. Layers to files, color. Yeah, it's not there. Okay, well, this is where we would do it then. Come in here, render video. It's going to be called Dog Video MP4. Select the folder, and it's going to go onto my desktop, and it's going to be in, where are you? Week 1, okay? And then hit OK. And what I want to do with this is using Adobe Media Encoder and high quality document size. I'm going to set this to, I think it was 400, right? Is that what I set the other one to? Was 400? I think so. 400 by 428. There we go. And frame rate is 30 seconds. I'll make it 15. I'll maybe make it, I'll leave it alone. That's okay. And color manage all frames, and then hit render. And let's see if we end up with a MP4 that we can play. So I'm exporting this as an MP4. I should be able to go right over to my folder for week 1, and I should be able to open it up. And there's my MP4 file, Dog Video, and if I double click on it, it plays my little MP4. Here it comes. There it is. Looks pretty good, right? What do you think? Does that look okay? I think it actually looks better as an MP4. The jumping isn't so obvious. Okay, guys?
Yep. There
you go. So that I'm going to do this all tomorrow night. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to show you. I got another one I'm going to do. I'm going to work on another one. But this, I wanted to do this one first because this is the actual assignment. This is what you're actually going to be working on, this particular one right here. Now, as I say, you could come in here and you could go, there's several of these files, all right? This is the first one. Here's the second one, okay? Now, the reason I didn't choose this one was because there's only one dog, and it doesn't make any sense to have only one dog moving, you know what I mean? It would be better to have a dog that's stationary and a dog that moves. So I didn't see the point of that one. And this one here, it's the same situation. I mean, here, this dog, there's only one dog. He's a very cute dog, but in my mind, none of these work as well because, you've got the dogs, there's only one dog. See, if you use this one, you have two dogs, and you could have the one dog not moving and one dog moving. So can you see the logic why I use the two dogs? You can do whatever you want, but I'm just saying it seems to me logically the thing to do would be to use the two dogs, all right? So that's it. What do you guys think? Are you guys good to go?
And you said that we could use a different video as long as we...
You can, if you have an MP4 that you would like to use, that you think you could work with, you can do it, provided you forward it to me first to look at and let me clear it.
Okay.
All right? So, yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with you using an MP4 if you want to show me it, and as long as it's something that, will work, you have my blessing. So I'm good. I'm done. You guys got any final thoughts?
I don't think so.
No? Are you okay with what I did? Is it clear enough?
For me, it was.
All right. All right. Well, then I guess hopefully we'll see you tomorrow night.
Yes, sir.
All right. You all have a good night. Thank you for coming. It was great having you here.
Question. What time are you going to start tomorrow night?
Where are you located?
Central.
So what time is it now for you? Because it's like 5 minutes of 9 or 5 minutes of 5 minutes of 9 here.
7:54.
So you're okay. So I start at 7 o'clock. See, 5 o'clock Mountain Time.
It would be 6 for you because it's 5 for me.
Yeah, it's 5.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually, I start at 5, it's 7 for me. I'm on the East Coast. So I start at 7, it's 5 to 7. I got a 2-hour, I'm 2 hours behind Mountain Time. right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, who did anybody have any trouble getting into the class tonight? Because one of you did. You guys got in okay?
I got in late, real late.
I'm just saying, did you have any trouble getting into the class?
Yeah, and so did June.
How did you get in? By using my number?
Yeah, because I was in another class because I have two, and I was in another class. That's why I came here late.
Oh, so you went from one class to another. You went a different way.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. As long as you got here and you had no trouble.
Okay.
I
All
had
right.
trouble getting in once I was late.
You had trouble?
Yes, I had to use your number to get in.
Okay. And is that you, June?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. Listen, I hope to see you guys tomorrow night.
I have
Hopefully I'll be here tomorrow night.
That's wonderful. Thank you and have a good night.